The great hall of the alien council ship was vast and silent. Tall silver walls curved high above, glowing softly with streams of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The floor was smooth like glass, and every footstep echoed as if the hall itself was listening. At the center of this place, Rena walked alone. Her chestplate caught the light as she moved. It was polished carefully, not only as armor but as a mark of her people. The humans had sent her as their envoy to stand among the council of many species. She was steady, calm, and aware that every eye in the chamber was fixed on her. The aliens filled the hall in neat rows. Some were tall and slender, with glowing lines across their skin. Others had wide shoulders and heavy frames, their bodies built for strength. Still others hovered lightly above the ground, their bodies more energy than matter. Every race had gathered, but only one human stood there. Rena knew she carried the weight of her people's image on her shoulders. As she reached the middle of the hall, a figure stepped forward from the alien side. It was a woman of the Storie kind, tall with pale silver skin and sharp eyes that glowed faint blue. The Storie were known for their curiosity, and this one seemed to carry that trait strongly. She moved with calm grace, but when she came close to Rena, she lifted her hand without speaking. The Storie woman's hand hovered toward Rena's chestplate. Her fingers spread slightly, as if she wished to feel the surface of the armor, to test its shine or weight. To her people, touching an object was the simplest way of learning. But before her hand could reach, Rena raised her own and caught the movement gently but firmly. She did not strike. She did not push. She simply held the space between them with a clear message. The hall grew still. Every alien eye turned toward them. The sound of voices faded. The Storie woman tilted her head, puzzled at the human's refusal. She looked into Rena's steady gaze and saw no anger, only a boundary that would not be crossed. Rena's voice broke the silence. It was calm, steady, and carried across the great hall. "Only my husband may touch my chestplate." Her words echoed in the chamber. The Storie woman froze, her glowing eyes widening slightly. Around her, other aliens whispered to one another in surprise. To them, armor was only armor, a tool for defense. They could not understand why a human would guard it so carefully, why such a simple touch was forbidden. Yet Rena did not move back. She stood tall, her shoulders squared, her hand still raised as a shield. She spoke with dignity, as if explaining a truth that could not be denied. The Storie woman lowered her hand slowly. Her face showed no insult, only deep confusion. She had studied humans through reports and records, yet none of them mentioned this strange rule. She wanted to question it, but the silence of the hall was heavy. Even the council leaders leaned forward in their seats, curious about this human declaration. Rena took a small breath and let her hand fall back to her side. She did not break eye contact with the Storie woman. The meaning of her words lingered in the air. To the aliens it was strange, but to Rena it was truth. The Storie woman finally spoke, her voice soft but carrying. "Why is this so, human envoy? It is only armor. Why forbid another from touching it?" Rena's expression did not change. She gave no long answer yet. She only said, "It is not only armor to me." The Storie woman frowned in thought, but she did not reach again. She took a single step back, her glowing eyes still fixed on the human. The other aliens whispered louder now, their voices rising in curiosity. To them, the human envoy had just drawn an invisible line that none of them understood. Some thought it was arrogance. Others thought it was pride. But a few saw something else in the way Rena stood, something unshaken that made them pause before laughing or mocking. The leader of the council raised a hand, and the hall grew silent once more. He looked down from the high seat where the council elders watched. His voice was deep and slow, like stone grinding against stone. The envoy speaks her truth. We will hear more of it. But none will touch without consent. The Sarai woman bowed her head lightly, accepting the judgment. She did not speak further, but her eyes showed both respect and curiosity now. She had expected to study the human envoy's armor like a craftsman studies a tool. Instead, she had touched a human rule that ran deeper than metal. Rena gave a respectful nod to the council leader, then stood once more in silence. Her heart beat steady beneath the chest plate, but her face revealed nothing of the pressure she carried. She had spoken clearly, and she knew the council would not forget her words. The hall was quiet again. The aliens studied her not as a curiosity now but as a puzzle. A human puzzle they could not easily solve. And Rena, the envoy of her people, stood firm at the center of it all, knowing this was only the beginning of what she must explain. The great hall of the alien council ship still echoed with the words Rena had spoken. The phrase "only my husband may touch my chest plate" had already begun to ripple through the chamber. Every alien present carried the sentence in their mind like a stone dropped into water, making circles that spread wider and wider. The Sarai woman who had first reached toward Rena remained still. Her pale silver skin reflected the lights of the hall, and her glowing blue eyes studied the envoy with fresh caution. She had expected simple curiosity to be welcomed. Instead, she had discovered a human law that none of the gathered species understood. At the far side of the chamber, the elders of the council shifted in their seats. They were creatures of great age and wisdom, each representing a different world. Some leaned forward with interest while others leaned back in doubt. The leader, who had spoken earlier, rested his heavy hands on the armrests of the council throne. His eyes, dark and steady, did not leave Rena. The silence stretched until one of the smaller council members spoke. He was of the Kuln, a thin being whose body looked almost like smoke wrapped in fabric. His voice was soft but carried clearly. "Human envoy, you speak of rules unknown to us. You say only your husband may touch the armor you wear. Tell us, why is this so? Is this law of all humans, or only your own?" Rena turned her gaze to the Kuln speaker. She did not answer quickly, for she knew her words would be remembered and judged. When she finally spoke, her tone was calm and measured. "This is not only my law. It is the way of my people. For us, the chestplate is not just armor. It is a mark of trust. When we allow another to touch it, we give them a place close to our heart. Only the one bound as a life partner is permitted such closeness. To allow another would be betrayal." Her words moved slowly through the hall, and though they were simple, they carried weight. Many aliens frowned or tilted their heads. They had never heard of such meaning placed on an object. The Sarai woman who had reached out earlier finally spoke again. Her voice was calm, but curiosity burned in it like fire. "Among my people, to touch another's armor is a greeting. It is how we learn about the strength of a warrior. It is no insult. Why would humans tie such deep meaning to metal and cloth?" Rena answered without anger. Her gaze remained steady. "Because armor protects life. It shields the heart, the breath, the core of what we are. To us, giving another the right to touch it is giving them power over our life itself. That bond belongs only to the one who has pledged to walk beside us forever. Without that bond, the touch has no place." A low murmur rose from the gathered crowd. Some aliens whispered in disbelief. Others folded their arms, considering the weight of her explanation. Still others nodded, beginning to see the honor behind her words. Another voice rose, this one deep and booming. A warrior from the Dran, whose broad shoulders made him look like living stone, stood from his place. His armor gleamed with scratches and marks of battle. To give such importance to armor is strange to us. Yet I cannot deny the courage it takes to guard that meaning here before all races. Human envoy, you speak of loyalty as if it is stronger than war itself. Rena turned her eyes to him and bowed her head slightly in respect. Loyalty is the root of our strength. Without it, no battle can be won, and no alliance can last. This is why I spoke, even when silence would have been easier. If I allowed another to touch what is meant only for my partner, then I would break that loyalty before all of you. I cannot do this. I will not. The words struck the chamber like a hammer. The council grew quiet again, and the air felt heavy with thought. For many of the gathered species, loyalty was tied to armies, contracts, or law. To see it tied so deeply to one person and one piece of armor was new and almost unthinkable. Yet the firmness in Rena's voice made them see it not as weakness but as conviction. The Sarai woman lowered her head in a small bow. Her glowing eyes softened, and her lips curved into the faintest sign of respect. Then I have learned today that humans guard more than flesh. They guard the meaning behind the flesh. I will not forget this, envoy. Her step back was slow, deliberate. She no longer tried to reach out. Instead, she placed her hands behind her back in a sign of restraint. The council leader finally rose from his throne. His heavy frame made the ground tremble softly as he stood. His deep voice filled the hall. Let this be recorded. The human envoy has declared her people's law. To them, the chestplate is not mere armor. It is a sacred bond of loyalty and trust. No hand may touch it without the place of a partner. This council will honor this law, for to dishonor it would be to dishonor humanity itself. The declaration spread across the hall like fire. Whispers changed into silence, silence into respect. The aliens who had doubted now studied Rena with new eyes. She was not only a guest in their chamber. She was a voice of a people who placed meaning in places they had never considered. Rena gave a respectful bow toward the council leader. She stood tall once again in the center of the hall, her polished chestplate shining under the silver lights. Her heart beat strong but calm. She had spoken her truth, and it had been accepted. From that moment forward, no alien in the chamber reached toward her armor again. The law of her people had been declared and understood. What began as confusion had turned into recognition. Rena did not smile, but there was quiet strength in her eyes. She knew this was only the beginning of her task among the stars. Yet in this single moment, she had won something more valuable than victory in battle. She had earned respect. And in the silence that followed, the council realized that humanity's strength was not only in weapons or numbers. It was in the meaning they gave to loyalty, to love, and to trust. The council hall no longer echoed with footsteps or voices. Instead, it buzzed with whispers that rose and fell like a restless tide. Rena stood in the center of the chamber, tall and calm, her polished chestplate gleaming beneath the silver light. She had spoken her law and the council leader had confirmed it. Yet even with the rule declared, the minds of the many species could not let go of their questions. The Sarai woman who had first reached for the chestplate now kept her hands folded tightly behind her back. Her glowing eyes, once bright with curiosity, now held a quiet respect. Still, she watched Rena as if trying to solve a puzzle that refused to open. To her people, learning came through touch, through the study of form and texture. The human envoy had refused this way and instead placed a wall of meaning that no Sarai had ever imagined. Among the tall seats of the council, the alien delegates murmured. The Dren warrior leaned forward, his massive arms crossed over his chest, a frown carved deep into his stone-like face. To him, armor was nothing more than a sign of battles fought, a layer of iron between flesh and blade. How could it hold such a personal bond that only one other being might touch it? Beside him, the Kuln delegate swayed gently, his smoke-like body shifting with the soft currents of air. His voice, though not yet spoken aloud, carried into the minds of his nearby allies. To the Kuln, life was fluid, and objects carried no spirit. They struggled to understand why humans would tie the spirit of loyalty to a crafted object. The whispers grew louder. Some aliens laughed softly, not in cruelty but in disbelief. They wondered if humans exaggerated their customs to gain respect. Others shook their heads, calling the human envoy's words foolish. Yet a few remained silent, their eyes narrowed, thinking carefully about the strength behind such conviction. Rena stood in the center of this storm, her back straight, her hands steady at her side. She did not let her gaze wander nervously. She had expected confusion. She had expected questions. The weight of being the first voice of humanity among the stars was heavy, and she carried it with discipline. Finally, one of the delegates rose from his seat. He was of the Thal, a species with long limbs and faces hidden behind smooth masks of bone. His voice was sharp and cutting as it filled the chamber. Human envoy, your words stir conflict in our thoughts. You speak of loyalty as if it must be tied to armor. Yet we see no reason why this bond cannot be shown in other ways. Is this not weakness? To let meaning rest in metal rather than the soul. The hall stilled at his challenge. Many waited for Rena's answer, curious if she would falter. But she did not. She lifted her chin slightly and spoke with even tone. It is not the metal alone that holds the meaning. It is the promise that surrounds it. To us, armor is not only shaped by smiths. It is shaped by the one who wears it, by the battles it survives, by the breath that it protects. The chestplate rests over the heart. It guards life. To place another's hand there is to say they are trusted with that life. It is not weakness. It is the highest strength. Her words carried with quiet force. Some aliens shook their heads, still unable to accept. Others leaned closer, beginning to sense that her meaning ran deeper than they had thought. The Sarai woman stepped forward once more, though carefully, with no hand raised this time. She bowed her head slightly before speaking. Your words surprise us, envoy. My people greet each other by touch, believing that nothing can be learned without contact. Yet you teach that sometimes contact must be denied, for meaning lies in restraint. It is a thought we do not know well. Her admission stirred the chamber. For a Sarai to admit ignorance was rare. Whispers rose again, softer now, less mocking and more thoughtful. The alien council had begun to feel the edges of human difference, even if they could not fully grasp it. A young voice spoke from the crowd of lesser delegates, a voice quick and sharp. If only your partner may touch the chest plate, then what of your comrades in battle? What of your leaders? Do you deny them as well? Rena turned toward the voice without hesitation. Yes. Even them. No leader may take the place of the partner. No soldier may step into the bond. The chest plate is not for command or rank. It is for trust beyond command, for loyalty beyond war. In this we are firm. Her words fell like a stone in the center of a pond, rippling outward. Some aliens laughed again, this time nervously. Others grew silent, realizing the weight of such a vow. To live by a rule that even leaders and comrades could not cross was no small thing. It demanded sacrifice, discipline, and an unshakable spirit. The council leader raised one heavy hand, and the whispers died away once more. His deep voice filled the chamber. You hear the human envoy. You see her stand unshaken in the face of our doubt. This is no simple custom. This is conviction, and conviction is a power we cannot ignore. His words brought silence. The alien delegates leaned back in their seats, their eyes turning from curiosity to consideration. The Sarai woman bowed again, this time lower, a gesture of respect. Still, confusion lingered. Even as respect grew, the aliens could not fully understand how such deep loyalty could rest in a piece of armor. To them, it was strange and almost unworldly. Yet that strangeness began to work on their minds, planting seeds of thought that might grow in time. Rena remained still at the center of the chamber, her heart calm though she knew the storm of ideas whirled around her. She had declared the rule of her people, and though it had confused, it had also planted a mark. Humanity would not be seen as careless or empty. They would be seen as a people who held meaning, even where others saw none. The session closed with the sound of a great bell that rang through the chamber, its echo carrying across the council ship. The delegates rose from their seats, their voices hushed as they prepared to leave. Some looked at Rena with respect, others with doubt, and still others with wary curiosity. As the hall emptied, the Sarai woman lingered at the edge of the chamber. She did not speak again, but her glowing eyes stayed on the human envoy. She had touched many things in her long life, but she had never touched an idea that resisted her hand as firmly as this one. Rena watched her go, her own gaze steady. She knew the confusion was not a barrier but a beginning. Confusion would turn to questions, and questions could turn to understanding. For now, she had done what she came to do. She had declared the rule. The council had heard it. And though confusion filled the air like mist, she walked away knowing that mist could clear under the light of patience and truth. The council hall settled once more after the storm of whispers and questions. Yet though silence returned, the air was heavy with thought. Every delegate carried the strange new weight of human custom in their minds. Some carried doubt, others curiosity, and a few carried quiet respect. Rena remained standing in the center of the chamber, her chestplate shining faintly under the silver light. She knew confusion still surrounded her words. She could feel it in the way alien eyes lingered on her, not hostile but uncertain, as if they were trying to pierce a riddle. She had declared the rule of her people, but now she understood she must do more. She must explain the heart behind it. The council leader, tall and broad like a mountain, leaned forward on his throne. His deep voice filled the hall. Human envoy, your law has been spoken and honored here. But many do not yet understand the reason. If you wish your people to be respected, you must show us not only the rule but the meaning. Speak now, so all may hear. Rena bowed her head in acknowledgement. She drew in a steady breath, then raised her eyes to meet the gathered delegates. I will tell you the meaning. I will tell you why the chestplate carries more than metal, more than battle. To humans, it is a symbol that holds the story of who we are. The hall grew still. The Sarai woman tilted her head, her glowing blue eyes unblinking, eager to hear the explanation that had denied her hand. The Dren warrior folded his arms tighter, curious despite himself. The Kulm delegate swayed softly, his smoky form rippling as if stirred by invisible winds. Rena lifted her hand and touched her chest plate lightly, not to remove it, but to show it. This armor does more than guard my body. It carries the memory of my battles. Every strike it has taken, every scar upon its surface, reminds me of what I have survived. It has been with me in fear, in pain, and in victory. When I place it upon myself, I am not only protecting flesh. I am carrying my story. Her voice was clear and calm, but beneath it lay the strength of lived truth. The aliens leaned closer, drawn to her words. For humans, Rena continued, life is not only about surviving. It is about meaning. We give meaning to objects, to words, to gestures. A meal shared becomes friendship. A hand held becomes comfort. A gift carried becomes memory. Our lives are short compared to some of yours, but because of this, we hold tightly to the meaning of what we share. Her words spread slowly across the hall. Some aliens frowned, still struggling to see how such small things could matter. Yet others began to shift uncomfortably, realizing they had overlooked the depth behind such acts. Rena let her hand fall back to her side. The chest plate rests over the heart. It shields what gives us life. To allow another to touch it is to open the heart, not with words but with action. It says, I trust you with my life, I trust you with my story, I trust you with the part of me that no weapon can guard. That trust is not given lightly. It belongs only to one who shares my path, one who has bound their life to mine. That is why only my husband may touch it. The chamber was silent, so silent that even the soft hum of the ship seemed distant. Her words carried not only explanation but conviction. The Sarai woman lowered her gaze, thoughtful. She had lived in a world where touch was simple and free, where meaning was found in the openness of contact. But now she began to understand that sometimes meaning was found in limits, in the refusal to allow what others might take for granted. The Dren warrior rose to his feet. His heavy voice echoed as he spoke. You speak of loyalty, human envoy, as if it is greater than the edge of a blade. You tell us that trust is armor stronger than iron. This is new to me, yet I cannot deny the strength I see in your words. Perhaps this is the weapon of your people, a weapon we cannot forge. Rena bowed her head slightly toward him. Loyalty is our strongest weapon, and also our shield. Without it, we would be nothing but scattered voices. With it, we become more than we are alone. The Kuln delegate's smoky form shimmered faintly, and his soft voice drifted like wind. Your kind gives weight to things that are not weight. You give meaning to objects, to vows, to touch. To us this is strange, but perhaps it is why your kind endures. You make the unseen heavy, and it binds you together. The whispers of the chamber began to change. They no longer carried disbelief or laughter. Instead, they carried thought, reflection, and quiet wonder. The aliens were not yet ready to claim they understood, but they could not deny they felt something stir within them. Rena's gaze swept across the chamber. She saw doubt still on some faces, but doubt was not defeat. Doubt was the beginning of questions, and questions were the beginning of understanding. She took one more step forward, her voice steady. Many of you think armor is only metal. But to us, it is memory, it is bond, it is promise. When I say only my husband may touch my chest plate, I am saying that only he may share the full weight of my life. It is not pride that makes me refuse another's hand. It is love. It is trust. It is the meaning we guard more fiercely than steel. The words echoed, soft yet powerful, through the chamber. No alien spoke immediately. No one dared laugh. The silence was full, heavy with the realization that they had witnessed not only a declaration but a truth carried from the heart of a people. The council leader stood tall once again, his deep voice rolling like thunder. the human envoy has spoken not only law but meaning. We have heard, and we will remember. Let it be known that humans guard loyalty as life itself, and that their strength lies in the bonds they refuse to break. The bell of the council rang once more, signaling the end of the session. Delegates rose from their seats, but their steps were slower now, their eyes lingering on the human envoy with respect or wonder. Some still shook their heads, unwilling to accept such ways, but even they carried her words in their minds. The Sarai woman remained standing for a moment longer. Her eyes, glowing faintly, watched Rena with quiet admiration. She had reached out in ignorance, but now she felt she had touched something far greater than armor. As the hall began to empty, Rena stood alone in the silver light. She knew the council's view of humanity had begun to change. They had asked for meaning, and she had given it. Now, whether they understood or not, the meaning was planted like a seed among the stars. And she would guard it, just as she guarded the chest plate upon her heart. The words of Rena still lingered in the council chamber long after she finished speaking. The bell had rung, and the official session was closed, yet few delegates left their seats quickly. Something had changed in the air. It was not loud or dramatic, but it was clear. Before, many had looked at Rena with suspicion or disbelief. To them, the human envoy was curious, perhaps even strange, a representative of a young species not yet tested among the stars. Now, their eyes carried something new. Respect was growing, though mixed with doubt, curiosity, and even a little unease. The Sarai woman remained near the center, her glowing blue eyes fixed on Rena. She had begun the encounter with simple curiosity, reaching toward the chest plate without thought. Now her hands stayed folded, her head slightly bowed, a small but clear sign of restraint. The gesture was noticed by others, and the shift in her posture became a signal to the rest of the chamber. If one of the Sarai, known for their boldness, could lower her hand in respect, then perhaps the human envoy's words deserved greater weight. Across the rows of delegates, whispers moved like a quiet current. A Dren warrior leaned toward another of his kind and muttered in his heavy voice. "This human speaks of loyalty as if it is iron. I do not understand, yet I feel her words strike harder than many weapons." His companion grunted in agreement, their stone-like faces unreadable but their silence telling. On the other side of the chamber, the calm delegate shifted gently, his smoke-like form rippling as if stirred by an unseen wind. His voice carried softly, more to himself than to others. The unseen made heavy. The touch refused. The trust unbroken. Strange. Strange, but strong. These murmurs, once filled with doubt, now carried hints of wonder. Rena felt the change, though she did not smile or lower her guard. She knew respect, once earned, could be lost in a careless moment. She kept her stance tall, her hands calm at her sides, and her chestplate gleaming like a silent shield. The council leader, still seated upon his throne, watched the hall with sharp eyes. He saw the whispers, the bowed heads, the shift in tone. He rose slowly to his feet, and his deep voice rolled across the chamber like a steady drum. "Let it be known that today we have seen the heart of humanity. They are a people of loyalty, and loyalty is no weakness. We have heard their envoy speak, and we have seen her stand firm when doubt pressed against her. This lesson will not be forgotten." The words carried authority, and with them, the mood in the chamber deepened. Delegates who might have mocked earlier now kept silent. Others gave small nods of acknowledgement toward Rena. Some even placed their hands across their own armor or garments, imitating her gesture in quiet respect. The Sarai woman stepped forward, not close enough to intrude, but enough that her presence drew notice. She spoke clearly, her voice no longer puzzled but steady. I came forward with curiosity. I reached without thought. I learned that humans guard their loyalty with strength we had not seen before. I accept this truth, and I will carry it to my people. The hall was quiet again, for her words held weight. The Sarai were explorers and seekers of knowledge. If one of them admitted learning something new, then the lesson must have value. Rena gave a slight bow, acknowledging the change without pride. She knew the path to understanding was long, but this was a step forward. After the session, the delegates began to leave the chamber. Yet as they passed, many slowed near Rena. Some gave small bows, others nodded, and a few simply paused to look at her chest plate, not with the desire to touch, but with respect for what it represented. Even those who still doubted did not laugh or dismiss her words. They left with thoughtful silence instead. The Dren warrior approached her directly. His heavy footsteps echoed on the smooth floor as he stopped before her. His broad frame towered above her, his armor thick and scarred from many battles. For a long moment, he simply studied her. Then he placed his right hand over his own chest plate and gave a firm nod. Human envoy. I understand little of your ways, but I see your strength. You speak with no weapon in hand, yet you hold the hall as firmly as if you carried a blade. This is rare. I respect it. Rena inclined her head in return. Respect is given when it is earned. You have shown yours, and I honor it. The Dren warrior gave a final nod and turned to leave. His steps were slow, not rushed, and his departure carried the weight of acknowledgement. As the chamber emptied further, the Sarai woman lingered once more. She stepped closer, though still keeping her hands behind her back. Her glowing eyes studied Rena with a gentleness that had not been there before. You said the chestplate holds memory, trust, and love. My people have no such bond with our armor. Perhaps we have lost something by treating it as only metal. Perhaps we will learn from you. Rena's reply was calm. Meaning is not found in objects unless we place it there. Your people have their own ways. Ours are different, but that difference is not weakness. It is strength, for it shows we each carry something the other does not. Together, we may learn. The Sarai woman gave a slow bow, deeper this time, and turned to depart. Her steps were graceful but thoughtful, as if each one carried a new weight. When the hall was nearly empty, the council leader remained. He looked down at Rena, his heavy frame like a shadow under the silver light. His voice, though deep, was softer now. Human envoy, you have changed the air of this chamber. Where there was doubt, now there is thought. Where there was dismissal, now there is respect. This is the shift you have brought. Guard it well, for it is the foundation of the path your people will walk among us. Rena bowed deeply, her voice steady. I will guard it, as I guard my chest plate. With loyalty, with truth, and with strength. The council leader gave a final nod before departing, his steps echoing into the silence. Rena was left standing alone in the great hall, the silver lights shining upon her armor. She could feel the change, subtle but real. Respect was not yet complete, but it had begun. The shift in atmosphere was like the turning of a tide, slow and steady, but powerful. She drew a long breath, her heart steady beneath the chest plate. This was no victory of war, no triumph of weapons. It was a victory of meaning. Humanity had spoken, and the stars had listened. The days that followed the council meeting were quiet, but they carried a different weight than before. The shift in the hall had spread beyond its walls. Rena felt it each time she walked through the long silver corridors of the council ship. Where once alien eyes had followed her with doubt or mild amusement, now they followed her with respect. When she passed the Dren warriors, they no longer looked at her as if she were fragile. Instead, they gave her a firm nod, their stone-like faces calm, their heavy hands pressed to their chest plates. It was not a gesture of their people, but one they had borrowed from her. She understood it as their way of saying they recognized her strength. The Sarai were even more noticeable in their change. Once, they had been quick to reach for any object that caught their interest. Their hands had hovered near her armor more than once in the past. But now, whenever she entered their presence, they clasped their hands behind their backs in a clear sign of restraint. It was their way of showing they had learned. And when they looked at her, their glowing eyes no longer carried only curiosity. They carried respect. The Kuln were quiet by nature, their smoky forms drifting through the ship's halls with little sound. They did not bow or gesture. Yet Rena noticed that when she passed them, the air around them grew still, as if the currents paused in deference. To her, this silence was as strong as a salute. One evening, as the great bell rang to call delegates to a smaller gathering, Rena entered the chamber once more. This time, the atmosphere was different even before she spoke. Delegates nodded to her as she passed. Some even moved aside, giving her space as if she carried not only her chest plate but also the dignity of her people with every step. The council leader noticed this change as well. He watched from his throne, his dark eyes steady, his expression unreadable. Yet when Rena stood before the assembly, he rose slightly from his seat in a gesture few had ever witnessed. It was not a bow, but it was acknowledgement, and it carried more weight than words. During the session, questions arose about trade routes, border patrols, and treaties. But again and again, glances drifted toward Rena. It was not her words on politics that drew them, but the memory of what she had said before. Many of them were beginning to measure her answers not just by logic but by the conviction they sensed behind them. After the meeting ended, a Dren warrior approached her in the corridor. He was tall, his armor thick with battle scars. He walked with heavy steps, yet when he reached her, he paused and bowed his head slightly. "Human envoy," he said, his voice low but firm, "I was taught that strength comes from victory in battle. But you have shown me another path. You carried no weapon, yet you stood against doubt, and the chamber yielded to you. I give you my respect." Rena answered with calm dignity. "Respect is stronger when it is shared. You give it, and I return it." The warrior struck his chest plate once with his fist, a gesture of his kind, before walking away. His steps were lighter than before. Later that same day, the Sarai woman sought her out. She approached with her hands once more behind her back, her glowing eyes soft rather than sharp. "When I reached for your chest plate, I did not know what I was reaching for," she said. "I thought it was only metal. I see now it was something greater. I wish to learn more. Will you teach me how your people place meaning into the things they carry?" Rena studied her for a moment, then gave a small nod. "I will teach, if you are willing to listen with patience. Meaning cannot be forced. It must be understood with time." The Sarai woman bowed her head in agreement. "Then I will learn with patience." The days stretched into weeks, and the changes grew stronger. Word spread beyond the council chamber, carried by the delegates to their fleets and their worlds. Stories of the human envoy who guarded her chest plate with loyalty and love began to reach far corners of space. Some repeated the story with confusion, others with admiration. But all remembered it. One evening, the council held a gathering not for politics but for unity. Delegates shared food from their worlds, told stories of their histories, and performed gestures of honor from their cultures. When it came time for Rena to step forward, many waited with curiosity. What would the human envoy share? Rena did not bring weapons or gifts. She simply placed her hand over her chest plate and spoke. My people may not have the power of ancient fleets or the age of long-lived stars. But we have something we guard with greater strength. We have loyalty. We have trust. We have the will to give meaning to what others might call small or simple. And that meaning gives us strength. Her words were short, but the chamber was silent afterward. No one mocked. No one doubted aloud. Instead, the silence itself became honor. The aliens saw that humanity's strength was not measured only in technology or weapons but in the bonds that held them together. The council leader stood and raised his hand. The human envoy has spoken. Her words carry not only for her people but for all who value loyalty. Let this gathering remember that strength comes not only from fleets, armies, or treaties, but also from trust. Today we honor humanity, for they have shown us that trust is not weakness, but power. The hall filled with gestures of respect. The Dren struck their chest plates with their fists. The Sarai bowed with hands behind their backs. The Kuln grew silent, their smoky forms still as stone. Even those who had doubted the most lowered their heads in acknowledgement. Rena stood in the center, steady as ever, but inside she felt the weight of what had been earned. She had not come to demand respect with weapons. She had not come to force her ways on others. She had simply stood firm, spoken truth, and guarded her meaning. And through this, she had earned the respect of the council. Later, as the gathering ended, the Sarai woman approached her again. This time she placed her hand over her own chest, above where her heart would be. Among my people, this gesture has never meant more than greeting. But today I give it to you with new meaning. I will teach my people that some bonds must be guarded, not shared lightly. This, I have learned from you. Rena bowed in return, her voice quiet but firm. And I will carry your respect as I carry my chest plate, with care and with honor. The chamber lights dimmed as the gathering ended. The delegates left one by one, but many looked back at the human envoy before stepping into the corridors. She was no longer only a stranger among them. She was a voice they would remember, a figure they would speak of, and a representative of a people whose strength came from the bonds of loyalty. In that moment, Rena knew respect had been earned. It was not complete, nor was it final, but it was real. And real respect, once gained, could grow stronger than steel. The great council ship drifted among the stars, a shining fortress where voices from many worlds gathered. For weeks, Rena had walked its long silver halls, speaking, listening, and standing firm. Now the time had come for the final council session. It would decide not only trade routes and treaties but also whether humanity would be recognized as a full member of the Interstellar Assembly. When Rena stepped into the chamber, the vast hall was already filled. Delegates sat in their high seats, banners of their worlds glowing softly above them. The air was quiet, but not with doubt as before. It was quiet with expectation. The council leader rose from his throne, his voice deep and steady. Today we gather for decision. We have heard the voices of many peoples. Now we hear again the voice of the human envoy. Rena walked forward. Her boots echoed against the smooth floor. The silver lights reflected off her chest plate, which shone not as decoration but as a symbol. She stopped in the center of the chamber and placed her hand upon it. The gesture was now familiar to all who watched. She spoke with calm strength. Honored council, when I first stood here, many saw me as young and untested. Some reached toward me, thinking humanity's ways were simple and easy to grasp. But when I spoke, I told you what we hold dear. Our chestplate is not only metal. It is trust, loyalty, and love. These bonds cannot be touched by strangers. They belong only to those who share them with honor. That is what makes us strong. She let her hand fall to her side but kept her gaze steady on the council. My people do not seek to rule or to boast. We seek to walk among you with dignity. We bring not only ships and trade but also our strength of loyalty. If you accept us, you do not only gain allies in war or trade. You gain a people who will guard their word as they guard their chest plate, never to be broken. Her words hung in the chamber like a steady flame. The Sarai woman stood. Her glowing eyes were calm, her hands folded neatly behind her. I once reached for the envoy's chest plate without thought. I thought it was only armor. I learned that it was more. From her, my people have learned respect. If humanity is admitted, I will welcome them as equals. A Dren warrior rose next. His heavy armor creaked as he stood tall. He struck his chest plate once with his fist, the sound echoing across the hall. The human spoke without blade or shield, yet her strength was greater than many who have fought battles. My people respect strength, and I say now, humanity has it. Then the Kuln delegate rose, his smoke-like form swirling with soft light. His voice was gentle but carried across the chamber. Trust unseen, yet felt. A bond heavier than stone. The human carries it. We see it. We respect it. One by one, more voices joined. The council leader allowed each to speak. Not all praised, but none dismissed. Some said they still found humanity strange, but even they admitted strangeness did not mean weakness. At last, the council leader lifted his hand. The chamber grew silent. He looked across the hall, then down at Rena. Envoy of humanity. You have spoken with truth. You have shown us that loyalty is not weakness but power. You have earned respect. Today, by voice of this council, humanity is accepted as a member of the Interstellar Assembly. The chamber filled with sound. The Dren struck their chest plates. The Sarai bowed. The Kuln grew still. Even species Rena did not yet know lowered their heads. It was not only a decision. It was recognition. Rena bowed deeply, her voice steady. On behalf of humanity, I accept with honor. We will walk among you not with pride alone, but with respect for what we have learned. The session ended, but the moment did not fade. Delegates came to her afterward, some with greetings, some with gestures of honor. The Sarai woman pressed her hand over her heart and spoke softly. Your people have changed how I see my own. That is a gift I will not forget. The Dren warrior placed a heavy hand upon his chest plate and nodded. Should war ever come, know that my people will stand beside yours. The Kuln gave no words, but the air around them grew still, as if the universe itself paused in respect. Later, as the chamber emptied, Rena remained for a moment, standing alone beneath the silver lights. She placed her hand once more over her chest plate and breathed deeply. She thought of her husband, waiting far away, and of the promise she had carried into the stars. She had not let any hand touch what was sacred. She had guarded her trust, and in doing so, she had carried not only her own dignity but that of all humanity. The council leader approached her one last time. His heavy steps echoed, and his deep voice was softer now. You came as a stranger. You leave as a member. You have left your mark here, human envoy. Remember that respect must be guarded always, just as you guard your chest plate. Rena bowed. I will guard it. Humanity will guard it. With loyalty, with trust, with strength. When she finally left the chamber, the stars beyond the great window seemed brighter. The council ship drifted on, but something had changed forever. Humanity was no longer outside looking in. They had earned their place among the stars. As she walked back through the silver corridors, she felt the eyes of many upon her. But now there was no doubt in them, no dismissal. Only respect. And so, in the heart of the Interstellar Council, the story of the human envoy was sealed. She had carried more than armor into that hall. She had carried the weight of loyalty. She had carried the trust of her people. And she had left behind something that could not be forgotten. Humanity's mark was made, not with weapons, not with conquest, but with the unbroken strength of the bonds they held dear. And in the quiet of the stars, that mark would shine brighter than steel.